and it didn't move towards me. So I take my camera and I lunge towards it with it running and the lights on. And I've reviewed the footage. You can see the flat face and this weird reflection, but you can't see any detail because the light was reflecting off of this thing like nothing I'd ever seen before. And at that point, my heart goes up. Okay, this can go bad real fast. So I realized that as I am settling down to take another look and reevaluate what this thing is, now I can see a corner and a flat face. I'm like, this is, at the time I was thinking man-made and probably bad. And so this all happens in like 3 seconds. And then I stop and my fin tips are on the seafloor and I'm looking at this thing and I'm lowering my camera down just a little bit, trying to look over my lights. And that's when I see that this thing is a cube. I can see the top of this. It's about 3 feet across and 3 feet deep. And it's a gold, shiny, back illuminated cube. And my heart just went right up in my throat. And I again, like when I saw the giant squid, I had that fear. And this is like the second or third time in my life I felt fear. I did not like this feeling at all. I felt totally toyed with by whatever this was. But I realized also that in this 3 second that lasted felt like a whole day, this thing was moving away from me at the same speed that I was moving towards it. Every time I moved towards it, it moved away. So I started to swim towards this thing, and it would maintain its distance away from me absolutely perfectly. And I'm descending along the seamount as fast as I can swim and gallop off the bottom, holding my camera up. This thing is able to keep that exact distance. So I have to clear my ears about 6 times, and then I had to stop, because then I knew if I clear my ears, if I started to dive at 200 feet and I clear my ears 5 or 6 times, I know I'm at 400 feet. I'm at my max depth. And I look at my computer, and sure enough, I'm pretty close to 400 feet. And so I start to rest on the bottom, still looking at this thing. And as I rest on the bottom, I'm putting my camera face down. And that's when the first time when I really saw the whole thing, when I took my lights completely off of it. Now I could actually see that this thing was a cube suspended off the bottom. And it was just perfect. It was beautiful and terrifying, because this isn't anything I've ever seen before. Now, see, you got to understand is that, at the age of 15, I was living on my own. Everything you can explain. It might be unknown at the moment, but you can find out what it is later. You can take a picture of the animal or the thermal vent or the rock, and you can give that information to somebody who knows that by specialty, and they can come back and tell you what it is. My whole life has been, Scott, we don't know what that is, but we'll let you know when we determine what species it is, and you can help us with identification because you found it. And that's happened to me several times. This wasn't one of those moments where I'm looking at something that was toying with me. And by the way, something I didn't tell you that I'd like to bring you back to the point where Dale and I are together we haven't separated yet, and I haven't seen this thing. Dale and I started to hear the most remarkable sound I've ever heard underwater. And I've heard submarines, I've heard rock slides, I've heard sand slides, I've heard whales. I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff in the water. There was a rumbling that was downslope, and it didn't sound like it was that far, but of course water travels beautifully underwater. So, you can hear a whale some people have heard whales from 100 miles away underwater as a diver. So if you can hear that, I don't know how close it was, but you could feel the vibration of this sound, intermittent, crazy sound. And you know what it sounded like? Was, if you've ever seen one of those giant D9 caterpillars, one of these like 40-ton giant caterpillars with the big blade, and they're moving giant boulders. It sounded like that. It sounded like a machine moving tremendous amounts of boulders. That's what it sounded like. I'm not saying that's what it was,